The South Island is the bicycle tourers' island. It is not as populated as the North, so there is less traffic. The South Island has more interesting scenery in my opinion. Most of the filming locations for the Lord of the Rings series are on the South Island.
We arrived on the South Island by ferry boat, having just finished riding the length of the North Island. Leaving Picton, there were so many great scenic overlooks of the Cook Strait. We could watch the ferry boats arrive and depart, the fishing boats and the tourist sightseeing crafts.
Being near the ocean again, or should I say as we usually are, we developed an urge to have seafood that night in Havelock. Along the way we met a Maori fisherman who promised to bring and sell us part of his catch to our hostel. Unfortunately he never arrived, so we went to the local New World and bought mussels to make mussels and pasta.
This section of our trip brought us from the interior back to the east coast just north of Christchurch. Did I mention that there is an abundance of uphill in New Zealand? By the time you get to this stage of travel, you will likely be wishing for some level roads. I doubt there is such a thing in general.
We didn't regret going a bit out of the way to the environs of Hanmer to find accommodation. In the winter, approximately June to August, this is a popular ski destination. The views of the hillsides are what we will always remember New Zealand to look like.
In this section we rode along north of Christchurch, soon crossing the Rakaia Gorge, which is a large enough geographic feature that you can see it from the plane while landing at Christchurch.
There are some large and very productive farms in this region. While my brother the farmer's fields are under snowback in Canada, the harvesting in New Zealand is in full swing. I rode through this area where I crossed Christchurch on 2 trips. When Shirley and I went through here, the downtown was still fenced in with a 3 meters high fence due to extensive damage from the earthquake. A strong earthquake occurred in Christchurch on February 22, 2011 at 12:51 p.m. local time. 185 people died. Fortunately for me, I left that exact day and I was in Sydney, Australia, a stopover on the way home when the quake struck. I will always question how some of the people I met in Christchurch fared during the earthquake, especially those that frequented Cathedral Square, right in front of the collapsed cathedral. was fortunate to get some of the last photographs of the Christchurch Cathedral and Cathedral Square. I especially wondered about this entertainer who set up daily on the steps in front of the cathedral. His music that I recorded seems to speed up as he went along, as if he had to get out of it. Car traffic, but I'll make an exception for the New Zealand Cobra Owners Club. Shirley was proud to have crossed the Rakaia Gorge.
The hostel at Geraldine was once a place where women went to have their baby. In the center of this section you must cross the Lindis Pass at about 975 meters in elevation. While the grade is generally easy, there is a steep 11% climb near the top.
The big incredible feature in this section is Lake Tekapo. The surrounding mountains and the weather they create for a super background for photographs of the lake. When I was there, a wedding party was taking a horse carriage ride along the shore of the lake. The biggest attraction for me was Cohen's Japanese restaurant, which was located beside the motel where I stayed for the night. All the photos in this section are from a solo bike tour that I made along the west coast of New Zealand, a place that gets frequent rain. Because of this, it has unique and spectacular vegetation and insects. Plan your route so that you spend a day or two in the exciting town of Wanaka. There are plenty of stores for resupply and an excellent beach for swimming.
Watch your food if eating outside, and there is a kea bird waiting to pounce. These smart birds can carry away an entire sandwich.
I'm sure you know the song of the cicada insect. I had to improvise earplugs to drown out the sound of thousands of them. Following then along the shores of Lake Wanaka, you reach the Makaurora area. Once through the Haast Pass, be sure to allow time to take a tour on foot of the Franz Josef Glacier. It is well worth the reasonable cost.
While it takes a bit of work to cross Arthur's Pass, the views make it worth the work.
I met these young ladies while hiking on the Arthur Tract.
Compared to the west coast of New Zealand, this area looks like a desert. It has its own distinctive sort of rock formations. But as you can see from the profile, we got a break from tough climbing. This map shows that we made extensive use of the Otago Central Rail Trail, but we really only used it for about 30 kilometers, for the rest we rode on the road.
I saw only a few ancient Maori statues on the South Island.
You will need a bit more than the average 700mm by 23mm road tire to travel on the Otago Central Rail Trail. Along the way there were several companies that rented bikes out and facilitated one-way riding along this trail. We saw more riders along this trail than in all the rest of New Zealand. You can meet people from all around the world when you stay at hostels.
When I stayed at the hostel in Oamaru, the owner told me where I had to be in order to see tiny blue penguins.
We got off the Pukerangi to Dunedin train, which gave us a lift over several good-sized hills. After an out-and-back tour of the Otago Peninsula, we rode down to the south tip of the South Island at Invercargill.
After a night's stay in Dunedin, we made an out-and-back tour of the Otago Peninsula out to the Royal Albatross Centre and back. This was a total of about 60 kilometers. In all of New Zealand, this is the best seaside riding you will get. There are several very good BBH hostels in Dunedin. Once I was describing to someone the location of a hostel. I said, it was perched on the side of a hill and overlooked the water. He replied that that's the case for 90% of the buildings in New Zealand.
Thankfully we booked our hostel's accommodation in the Otago ahead by a few days because they fill up fast. We stayed at McFarmer's Hostel for 2 nights, a place not to be missed. There is a super kitchen, common area and a panoramic deck overlooking the bay.
It was well worth the cost of taking a tour of the Royal Albatross Centre. I came prepared to get some photos of the birds in flight and wasn't disappointed. These Royal Albatross have a wingspan of 3 meters, can live for 42 years and can stay aloft for months. The Ancient Mariner. God save the Ancient Mariner from the fiends, that plague thee thus. Why look'st thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross.
We noticed that the days were getting cooler. In the mornings it was around 10 degrees Celsius and we had to cover our legs during the morning riding. As always, the views of the ocean were magnificent and frequent. The weather seemed to take on a more ominous character and clouds became a dramatic backdrop for the views.
Shirley is an outgoing person and is always finding new friends along the way. She is with her latest acquaintance here near Curio Bay. For the daring, the determined and the motivated cyclist, with a couple months to take out of their routine life, riding the length of New Zealand is a life goal. Sure, there are numerous hills, but of course this is why there are a lot of scenic viewpoints. During our last few days in New Zealand, spent at Invercargill, the southernmost city in the south of the South Island, the owner of the hostel gave us the use of his entire private home while he was gone on a few days trip north. We couldn't have asked for a nicer place to end our spectacular journey. From what I have read, you need to be further than 27 degrees south in latitude to see the Southern Cross. I took this photo at more than south 37 degrees. Thanks for watching our video, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel. See you in some of our other biking videos.